Hey, welcome to the channel. So there have been many articles being published about Elon Musk's statement on inflation. He said that the company was facing inflation pressure on raw materials and the logistics behind his business, and that before they could not raise prices, before they could lower prices, inflation would have to come back down. And this guy, you have to realize what he's saying. He knows he's not an economist. Everyone should know that he's not an economist. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's a businessman, and he's definitely capitalizing on inflation. And that's what I kind of want to talk about today. You've seen the prices of Teslas just skyrocket. I mean, the Model Y hasn't risen too much. It has gone from like 63,000 to 66 or 65,000. But the Model X, I remember that used to cost like 90,000, and now it starts like at $110,000. Yeah, when they had the 75 kilowatt hour battery pack on that thing, I think it started at like 90. And so, you see like the Model Y, the Model X is rising. A lot of the inflation that's occurring in Tesla is actually in the Model S. Like, you used to be able to get a Model S for around 70-ish thousand, and since it's like the flagship model, you can't even get it for lower than 110. Like, and that is what really rose the prices of the used Tesla market, because one, Tesla can't crank out enough cars because so many people want Teslas, and two, it's like, if a new Tesla costs 110,000, then why does like the 2016 Model S Raven like cost 43,000 like it did during the pandemic? Why do I call baloney on all this? Well, the company's operating margin, their revenue, and their operating income has just completely expanded in the last year or so. I From research I've done, the operating income has increased by like 46% between the end of 2021 and March of 2022. And revenue has increased about 15.6%, and their operating margin has increased from 12% to 15.3%. So what does this all mean? I mean, yeah, those are huge numbers. But what does it really mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, it means they're saving a ton of money on operating costs, if you think about it. Like, the operating income is basically, if you don't already know this, it is the business's profits minus operating costs, like wages would be one. Cost of goods sold, so the cost to produce a Tesla Model S, and also depreciation of assets, so their equipment that's used to build these Teslas. And so if operating income goes up, it means they're saving money somewhere. So the business is doing fine. They're saving money somewhere. Maybe it's from cutting the labor force. I don't know, or raising the prices. That'll do it too. But what this shows is that Tesla could take on, more expensive raw materials if they wanted to. Their cash on hand is like $18 billion. So it's a little strange. Like, they could weather an economic storm if there was such one. Instead, they're creating kind of this false alarm. They're firing 10% of their workforce, or they've been touting it, right? And they're raising prices on their vehicles, okay? But if their operating income is doing so well, and their operating margin's up, their revenue is up, it kind of reminds me of when Apple first started raising the prices year over year on the iPhone. It was that was because Apple did market research, and they realized that people are comfortable with paying more for an iPhone year over year. And so because of that, they could raise the price of the iPhone to a certain point where they wouldn't lose too many customers, but their revenue would shoot up like crazy, because instead of selling the iPhone for $600, you can sell that same iPhone for $1,100, and like only 10% of people who bought that iPhone would stop buying it. And so that difference between 100% of people buying it at 600 and 90% of people buying it at 1,000, I mean, you got to think you're making a lot more money, even though it's kind of like robbing people, sort of. I mean, it's their choice to purchase the iPhone at that higher price, right? Like, I can just go to any other phone company. There's so many other companies that make phones. Like, I don't have to choose iPhone, but because I choose to own an iPhone, I choose to pay that price. Tesla seems to be doing the same. And not only that, but going back to what he originally says, what Elon Musk says, if you want to see Tesla prices come down because of raw material or logistical issues, I mean, you need to see disinflation. You need to see deflation, which is the devaluing of assets. That's the only way to reverse inflation. If you just lowered inflation from like 9%, whatever the CPI is now, to back down to 2%, I mean, yeah, the inflation is still there. It's still increasing the price of the product. So if you want to eliminate price increases, you have to get price decreases. And if you don't see any price decreases, if we still continue to see some level of inflation, I mean, prices, you got to think, prices where they are at now, they're going to stay there. Like, we may see, an influx of supply of inventory from these retail stores that were counting on all this demand, and they found out that there wasn't so much demand. I mean, if you see all that coming in, right? If you see all these retail stores getting all this inventory, yeah, that could create the deflation because, people are going to buy up all that stuff when it's discounted. They're not going to buy up all that stuff when it's not discounted. And when they discount it enough people buy it all and there's nothing left. And then China doesn't want to make more goods because they see what's happening here, that people aren't buying stuff. Why are they producing? Why should they produce if the retail stores aren't going to resell it, right? If no one's going to buy the stuff that they're making in China, why would they produce? They're going to shut down their doors, which is what we're currently seeing right now. That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to have this huge influx of supply. The supply is going to dwindle, and then we're not going to have anything. And it's this repeating cycle because of what happened 2 years ago. Because the whole supply chain got messed up. It got stopped completely. And people try to kick it back up in full gear. And you can't do that. You have to slowly get it back running. Otherwise, we're going to see these huge increases, this huge volatility swings in supply. And so maybe that's something Tesla's considering. Maybe they see that. And maybe we don't see that. Maybe he's just telling us something that he wants us to hear because that's what everyone else is saying. But in reality, there's a whole other reason behind it. And maybe it's different from the reason I just shared with you today. But that's the most logical thing I can think of, right? Instead of just, Elon Musk saying that because, he knows in 2 years there won't be any lithium left because Australia stopped mining it or because China stopped mining it or something like that. That's my rant for today, guys. Let me know what you think in comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.